Shana Tova, everyone. Welcome to our second day Rosh Hashanah Torah reading. It's from the book of Bereshit, from the book of Genesis. It's the 22nd chapter, and it's probably one of the most famous stories out of the book of Genesis. It's Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, where God commands Abraham to take his son, his only son, the son he loves, Isaac, and to offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain that God will show Abraham. It's the quintessential Rosh Hashanah Torah reading, and here it is, chapter 22 of Genesis. Vayehi achar hadavarim ha'ela, va'elohim nisa et Avraham, vayomer elav, Avraham, vayomer, hineni, vayomer, kach na et bincha, et yichidcha, asher ahavta et Yitzchak, v'lech lecha el eretz hamoriah, v'ha'alehu sham le'olah al achad heharim asher omar elecha. Vayeshkem Avraham baboker, vayachashov et chamoro, vayikach et shnei na'arav ito, ve'et Yitzchak beno. V'yavaka etze olah, vayakom vayilech el hamakom asher amar lo ha'elohim.
And so it was that after these events, God put Abraham to a test. And God said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And God said, Come, take your son, your only one, whom you love, Isaac, and go forth to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I will show you. And Abraham arose early in the morning, and harnessed his donkey, and took with him his 2 young servants and his son Isaac. And he split the burnt offering wood, and rose and departed for the place that God had said to him.
Bayom hashlishi vayisa Avraham et einav, vayar et hamakom merachok. Vayomer Avraham el na'arav, shvu lachem po, im hachamor, va'ani v'hana'ar ne'elcha ad ko, v'nishtachaveh v'nashuva alechem. Vayikach Avraham et atzei ha'olah, vayasem al Yitzchak beno, vayikach biado et ha'esh ve'et ha'ma'achelet, vayelchu shnehem yakdav.
On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place in the distance. And Abraham said to his young servants, You stay here with the donkey, while the boy and I go further on. We will worship and return to you. And Abraham took the burnt offering wood and placed it on his son Isaac, and took in his own hand the firestone and the knife, and the 2 of them walked together.
Vayomer Yitzchak el Avraham aviv, vayomer avi, vayomer hineni vani, vayomer hine ha'esh v'ha'etzim v'ayeh haseh le'olah. Vayomer Avraham, Elohim yireh lo haseh le'olah v'ni, v'yelchu shnehem yakdav. Vayavo el hamakom asher amar lo ha'elohim, vayiven sham Avraham et hamizbeach, v'ya'aroch et ha'etzim, v'ya'akod et Yitzchak beno, v'yasem oto al hamizbeach, mima'al la'atzim.
And Isaac said to his father Abraham, he said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Here's the firestone, and here's the wood, but where is the sheep for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, God will see to the sheep for a burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them walked together. And they came to the place that God had said to him, and there Abraham built the altar and arranged the wood and bound his son Isaac and placed him on the altar over the wood.
Vayishlach Avraham et yado, vayikach et hama'achelet, lishchot et beno. Vayikra elav malach Adonai min hashemayim, vayomer Avraham, Avraham. Vayomer hineni. Vayomer al tishlach yadcha el hana'ar, va'al ta'as lo mimuma ki ata yadati. Ki yirei Elohim ata, velo chasachta et bincha, et yechidcha mimeni.
And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And a messenger of Adonai called to him from heaven, saying, Abraham, Abraham! And he said, Here I am. And the messenger said, Do not lay your hand on the boy, do nothing to him. For now I know you are in awe of God, since you would not deny me your son, your only one.
Vayasa Avraham et einav, vayar v'hine ayel achar ne'echaz b'savach b'karnav. Vayelech Avraham vayikach et ha'ayel, Vaya'alehu la'olah tachat beno. Vayikra Avraham Shem hamakom hahu Adonai Yireh. Asher ye'amer hayom bahar Adonai Yireh. Vayikra malach Adonai el Avraham shenit min hashemayim.
And Abraham lifted his eyes, and suddenly he saw in the thicket a ram caught by its horns. And Abraham took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering in place of his son. And Abraham called that place by the name Adonai Yireh, Adonai will see. As it is said to this day, on the mountain of Adonai there is seeing. And a messenger of Adonai called to Abraham from heaven a second time.
Vayomer bi nishbati neum Adonai. Ki ya'an asher asita et hadavar hazeh, velo chasachta et bincha et yechidecha, ki varech avarechecha, v'harba arbe et zaracha, ki kochavei hashamayim v'kachol asher al safat hayam. Vayirash zaracha et sha'ar oivav. Vehit baruchu v'zaracha kol goye haaretz ekev asher shamata b'koli.
And said, By myself I swear, declares Adonai, that because you have acted thus, and would not deny me your son, your only one, I will bless you greatly, and I will multiply your seed like stars in the sky, and like sand by the sea. Your seed shall possess the gate of its foes, and all the earth's nations shall be blessed through your seed, because you hearkened to my voice.
Vayashov Avraham el na'arav, vayakumu, vayilchu yachdav, El Be'ar Shava, Vayeshev Avraham Bi Ve'er Shava. Vayihi Acharei Hadorim Ha'ele, Vayugad LaAvraham Lemor, Hine Yelda Milka Gam Hi Banim LaNachor Achicha, Et Utz Bechoro, Ve'et Buz Achiv, Ve'et Kumuel Avi Aram.
And Abraham returned to his young servants, and they rose, and together they walked to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. And so it was, after these events, Abraham was told, Here, Milcah too has given birth to sons, to your brother Nahor, Uz the firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram.
Ve'et Kesed, ve'et Chazo, ve'et Pildash, ve'et Yidlaf, ve'et Betuel. Uvetuel Yalad et Rivka, Shmona, Ela Yalda Milka Lenachor Achi Avraham. Ufilagsho, Ushema, Ru'uma, Veteled Gam Hi et Tevach, Ve'et Gacham, Ve'et Tachash, Ve'et Ma'acha.
And Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Yidlaf, and Betuel fathered Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And his concubine, her name was Reumah, also gave birth to sons, Tebah, and Gaham, and Tahash, and a daughter, Ma'akah.
Thus says the Eternal, a people, survivors of the sword, gained grace in the wilderness. Long ago, when Israel was on its journey home, the Eternal appeared and said, with an everlasting love I have loved you. Indeed, with a love that is faithful, I draw near you. Once more I will build you up. Young maiden Israel, you will be made anew. Once more you will take up your drums in hand and join the dance of the joyous. Once again you will plant vines in Samaria's hills, and the planters will live to enjoy them. For a day is coming when watchmen will announce, in the hills of Ephraim, arise and let us go up to Zion, to the Eternal our God. For thus said the Eternal, cry out in joy for Jacob. Cry out in praise over the pinnacle of the nations. Sing and shout, and say with voices raised, Eternal, save your people, the remnant of Israel. I am here to bring them back from the land of the north, to gather them from the ends of the earth, the blind and the lame among them, women who are pregnant along with birthing mothers. They shall return here, a great community. With weeping they will come. With compassion I will guide them. I will bring them on a smooth path to brooks of water. They will not falter, for I become like a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Nations, hear the word of the Eternal. Declare it in the distant islands, and say, the one who scattered Israel will gather them in and guard them as a shepherd the flock. For the Eternal has redeemed Jacob and saved him from hands stronger than his own. Happy their song when they reach the summit of Zion and bask in the glow of divine generosity. Grain, wine, oil, sheep, and cattle, they will be like a well-watered garden through and through, never again to languish. The maidens will dance with delight, the young and their elders together. Their grief I will turn into bliss. I will comfort them and gladden in their time of sorrow. The priests will have their fill of fatness, and my people my bountiful goodness, declares the Eternal. Thus says the Eternal, a voice is heard in Ramah, wailing, bitter weeping. Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children, for they are gone. Thus said the Eternal, keep your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your labor shall have its reward, declares the Eternal. They shall return from the enemy's land, and there is hope for your future, declares the Eternal. Your children shall return to their land. How I hear Ephraim lamenting. You have disciplined me like a wild calf. I have been disciplined. Help me return, and I will return, for you are my eternal God. Now that I have turned back, I am filled with sorrow. Now that I am made aware, I strike my thigh in remorse. Ashamed and humiliated, I carry the disgrace of my early life. Truly, Ephraim is my precious child, my delight. And though I speak against him, I remember him with tenderness. That is why my heart yearns for him. I will receive him back in love, declares the Eternal.
As you get to know me better, you'll notice that I like to tell stories. I come from a long line of storytellers. Both my grandmothers, one Polish and the other German, filled my bedtime hours with stories of wild beasts and magical heroes. And my father, a teacher of English literature, introduced me to the stories of King Arthur and his shining knights, as well as Beowulf, Robin Hood, Captain Ahab, and of course, stories of a hobbit who lived in a shire. We tell stories because they help us navigate a difficult world, a world that seems oftentimes more dark than light. And stories help us to make sense of things that trouble us. They help us to explain and to edify. They bridge the gaps between generations and groups. Stories play a large role in our tradition as well. The Bible is filled with stories. Our rabbinic traditions, the Mishnah and the Talmud, are filled with maaseyot. We know this word better in its Yiddish form, a maisa, as in a baba maisa, an old wives' tale. I remember many of the stories my grandmothers told me. When I was a child, there seemed to be a never-ending stream of stories that came from them. And as I grew up, I listened to them as they told the same stories to my brother. And I would wonder why they didn't have something new to say to him. Why were they telling him my stories? Then I realized something. These weren't just my stories. My grandmothers were taking part in one of the oldest traditions of our people. They were teaching through stories. Think back on the stories of your youth. We listened to stories about children who didn't listen to their parents, about little children who talked to strangers or took candy from old crones. Whether we knew it or not, we were learning lessons about life. We were being prepared to go out into the world. So in keeping with the traditions of my grandmothers, I'd like to share a story. Once upon a time, a poor man lived with his wife and 7 children in a very small one-room house. They were always getting in each other's way, and there was so little space they could hardly breathe. Finally, the man could stand it no more. He talked to his wife and asked her what to do. "Go see the rabbi," she told him. And after arguing a little while longer, he went to the rabbi. The rabbi greeted him warmly and said, "I see something is troubling you. Whatever it is, you can tell me." And so the poor man told the rabbi how miserable things were at home for him, with his wife and 7 children all eating, living, and sleeping in one room. The poor man told the rabbi, "We've even started to yell and fight with each other, something we never did before. Life couldn't be worse." The rabbi thought very deeply about the poor man's problem. And then he said, "If you promise me that you will do exactly as I tell you, things will get better. Do you promise?" "I promise," the poor man said. The rabbi then asked the poor man a strange question. "Do you have any animals?" "Yes," he said, "I have 1 cow, 1 goat, and some chickens." "Good," said the rabbi. "When you get home, move all the animals into your house to live with you." The poor man was astonished to hear such advice from the rabbi, but he had promised to do exactly what the rabbi had said, so he went home and took all the farm animals into the tiny one-room house. The next day, the poor man ran back to see the rabbi. "What have you done to me, Rabbi?" he cried. "It's awful. It's gone from bad to worse, far worse. I did exactly what you told me, and the animals are all over the house. There's even less room now. Rabbi, help me." The rabbi listened and said, "Now go home and take the chickens back outside, and may God bless you." The poor man did as the rabbi said, but hurried back again the next day. "The chickens are gone, but Rabbi, the goat," he moaned. "The goat is smashing up all the furniture and eating everything in sight." The rabbi said, "Go home and remove the goat, and may God bless you." So the poor man went home and took the goat outside. But he ran back again to see the rabbi, crying and wailing, "What a nightmare you have brought to my house, Rabbi! With the cow, it's like living in a stable. Can human beings live with animals like this?" The rabbi said sweetly, "My friend, you are right. May God bless you. Go home now and take the cow out from your house." And the poor man quickly went home and took the cow out of the house. The next day, he went running back to the rabbi. "Oh, Rabbi," he said with a big smile on his face, "we have such a good life now. The animals are all out of the house is so quiet, and we've got room to spare. What a joy." Many of you will have heard this story before in one version or another. It's a simple folk story, which usually has the title, "It Could Always Be Worse." This morning, as we all make the transition from one year into another, we inevitably reflect in so many ways on the year that has passed and look forward to a new year with all its hopes and promises. As we move into the new year, I want to suggest a meaning different than "it could always be worse." There's no doubt that we're entering uncharted waters. With each new year, we embark on a new journey. There's apprehension about the unknown future, perhaps in this year more than in other years. Yet there is also relief that we have survived the tempest that was the last year. And there's also a bit of sadness as we leave behind happy times. There are so many questions we need to ask ourselves right now. There's so much unfinished business, so many choices we have made that cannot be changed, no matter how much we want to change them. Yes, life is tough and scary, and so much of the time we feel out of control, overwhelmed, sad, angry, depressed, and even hopeless. These feelings remove from us the miracle of the moment and deny us the feeling of gratitude. For me, the story about the man, his family, and the animals is about being aware of gratitude. Sometimes we become so overwhelmed that we forget to be thankful for all that we have. All too often, we become so caught up in what we don't have that we forget to be thankful for what we do have. In chapter 4 of Pirkei Avot, a wonderful collection of bite-sized rabbinic teachings, Ben Zoma asks, "Ezehu Ashir?" Who is wealthy? Hasameach bechelko, the one who is happy with what they have. What a wonderful idea, being happy with what we have. This doesn't mean that we're not allowed to want more, to want to better our lives and the lives of our loved ones. What it does mean is that before we think about getting more, we need to appreciate what we already have. Our tradition has been teaching us this since the very beginning. Gratitude should be something of which we are constantly aware. In fact, the rabbis teach us that the very first thing we should do in the morning, as soon as we open our eyes, is to say, Modeh Ani, thanking God for restoring our souls. I know that I sometimes wake up on the wrong side of bed, or I wake up and I'm already running behind schedule. At these moments, gratitude is the last thing on my mind. I just want to get on with my life. However, it really should be the first thing on my mind. When we do this, when we take a moment to be grateful, it's not just about saying the words and getting credit for saying a blessing. We need to allow the words to enter us and to change how we feel. Yes, I may be running behind, but I am alive, and can go out into the world. I need to take a moment and realize how lucky and blessed I am. I think that if we all adopted an attitude of gratitude, or as our tradition puts it, an attitude of hakarat hatov, the world would be a much better place. Instead of looking at what we lack, we should be thankful for what we have. Instead of using phrases like have to and need to, we should use the phrase can and am able. For example, around Father's Day this year, I was in Target and I heard someone complaining, "I can't believe I have to buy a card for my dad. What a waste." And I had to walk away because I wanted to shake him, to tell him that he should be grateful that he had a father for whom he could buy a card. I know it isn't always easy to be grateful, to recognize the good in our lives. We are sometimes caught up in the micro view of our lives. We sometimes miss the bigger picture because we're flying at too low an altitude. My father used to tell me that I was always missing the forest for the trees. And he meant that I was looking too closely at something and that I should back up and take a wider view. Sometimes we miss the good in our lives because we're looking in the wrong places. We're expecting other people to create our happiness. Or perhaps we expect material items to provide our life's meaning and its joy. And sometimes we mislabel the good gifts that are ours. If you read anything about our current culture, you'll find critics lamenting the fact that we live in a culture of entitlement. Or as one critic pointed out, not only is it the culture, it's an entire generation raised to think it's entitled. We think that we're entitled to certain things, a big house, a snazzy car, an abundance of food. We think that we're entitled to relationships with others. We are entitled to the love of family, to the undying support of friends, and respect from strangers. We sometimes think that we are so important that we are entitled to never-ending beautiful weather and good health. However, the problem with viewing these and other things as entitlements is that when we lose them, or if they don't live up to our expectations, we become resentful. We feel resentment because we feel that we are owed these things. However, if we simply adjust our definition, we begin to see the world in a different way. Instead of feeling entitled, we adjust our view and see how we are blessed. In a dark and scary world, a house, a car, and a food are blessings. They are gifts. In a world that seems cold and cruel, the love of family and friends is a blessing and a gift. Beautiful weather and a healthy body, these too are blessings. It might seem as if I'm arguing semantics, but language is important. Our words create our reality. If we can embrace this new way of looking at things in our hearts, it can be transformative. Today, I ask you to do the same. Take on the practice of hakarat hatov, being grateful, from now through Yom Kippur and beyond. Take a look at your life. Find the good in it. Identify it. Speak it and say it out loud. Make it real by telling someone about it. One of the amazing things that I have discovered about gratitude is that the opportunity to experience it sometimes comes in the strangest of places. Some years ago, we had 3 dogs, and I would walk them for about an hour each morning. I used this time to listen to podcasts, music, or to think about stuff. Sometimes, more often than I would like, we'd get caught in the rain. When this happened, I'd get angry. Why does this always happen to me? I'd think. One day, however, I saw, as I was muttering to myself about being caught in the rain yet again, my German shepherd, Schotten, was rolling in the grass on her back, oblivious to the rain. My black lab border collie mix PJ was busy snapping at a fly. And the little one, a black lab retriever mix, JD, was standing in the middle of a puddle, watching the raindrops make bubbles and ripples. At that moment, there was very little I could do but laugh and realize how lucky I was. My anger melted and I forgot the rain. And as we continued our walk, I thought about how many other good things were in my life. My partner, my mother, my brother, my nephew, my health, and all my opportunities for growth. So as we enter this new year, I want to invite each of us to reflect honestly on the past year and ask ourselves a tough question. How many times have we whined, complained, and moaned about something that seemed out of our control to change? How many times have we given in to despair rather than found something for which to be grateful? This is the essence of this morning's story, to find moments of peace and deep thankfulness, especially at times when this seems impossible. Now, this isn't meant to make you feel guilty for these lost moments. Rather, take this moment right now and think about everything in your life for which you are grateful. We know this is the time of year when we seek forgiveness and try to repair broken relationships with others. However, we should also use these days to appreciate the people whose presence in our lives is a blessing, as well as taking some time to tell them how grateful we are for them and how much we appreciate them. Every moment of every day is a miraculous blessing. Let us enter into the new year with a sense of gratitude for all the blessings and gifts we have been given. May we always focus on what we have and be grateful for all the blessings, the obvious ones and the subtle ones, which fill our lives. May we always recognize these blessings and take time to be thankful for them, not just at this time of year, but on each and every day. Shana Tova.